So as I'm looking at December results this year, I mean, you have to remember the holiday season is tough for any kind of marketing because you're competing, in a more crowded space. You have all the advertisers who are doing double duty and extra layers of ads, more focused, specific ads for their products and events and things like that for gifting. So your dollar is not going to go as far. So you have to remember that when you're reviewing your results with your website providers and your advertisers and anybody who's doing any kind of marketing for you, is that dollar is just not going to stretch. It just isn't. And that's just math. It has nothing to do with anything they changed or you changed or they did do or didn't do. It simply doesn't math in the last quarter of the year. You have to kind of stick to your guns, stick to your budget, and just ride out that wave. Now we're going into, and I know it seems like a long way off, it really isn't. This year is an election year. 2024 is an election year. So not only are you going to have to contend with holiday advertising in Q4, you're absolutely going to have to contend with political advertising as well. And that's where the space is just going to get absolutely crazy. But let's focus on the here and now. So as we're looking at, it's the first week of January and we're looking at December results, right? Because we want to make good decisions for the rest of January and for Q1 on how we're going to strategize and spend our dollars now that the OEM offers are coming in and we're actually getting some traction. We actually can say and point to, all right, we want to spend X amount here. We want to use these dollars for this. We want to push this campaign and so on and so forth. So what I would really recommend is kind of take the results from December with a grain of salt, because that's honestly what your vendors are doing to accommodate for that holiday traffic that just happened. And that ate up all of your marketing dollars, that put your CPC higher than you wanted it to be, but then your conversions aren't where they want to be. You're not anywhere near the levels you were at pre-holiday season. So really take it with a grain of salt and utilize a year-over-year campaigns instead of a period-over-period comparison. Really look at the year-over-year. Now that we're finally away from 2020 and the weird COVID, numbers that everybody got, I think we can honestly look at year-over-year, and inventory levels are more steady. Honestly, they're a glut right now. But anyway, but look at the year-over-year numbers instead of looking at the period-over-period when you're talking about Q4. And then when you're going into like this next year Q4 is going to be an election year, you're really going to want to compare that to the previous Q4 with a grain of with that incline, with that awareness of the fact that you have the extra added layer of a political ad season in there too. So what's that going to do to your results? That's the question I get. What's that going to do to my results? Well, your conversions are going to go down, period. People, it's not the car shopping season. Q4 has never been a high traffic, what am I trying to say here? It's never been a high quantity traffic season, but it has been a high quality traffic season. What I mean by that is the people who are shopping in Q4, they're buying a car. Like your close rate is probably going to be a lot higher, not just because you have a lower amount of lead volume, but because people who are buying a car in the last 3 months of the year, they need a car. Like they're buying. It's not they're just looking or they're thinking about it or their neighbor got it, so they're looking to see what it costs. It's none of that looky-loo crap. It's the same thing I say when you're selling cars in the rain or in the snow or anything like that. Anybody who comes out in the pouring down rain to buy a car, they're buying a car. Like they're not leaving there without a car. They didn't come out in the rain because they like car shopping. They came out in the rain because they need a freaking car. So the same thing applies in Q4. People the looky-looing isn't as bad in Q4. I feel like the quality is a lot better. You've got a lot more focused shopping. So make sure your ad copy reflects that when you're talking about paid marketing. Make sure your social ads reflect that in your organic posting on your website and so on. And what I mean by that is, let's start with like your Google business and your search, your ads. Make sure they reflect what's your interest rate right now? I know you're not going to beat the 0% that I got 4 years ago, but maybe you could get down to 2.99. So I would actually focus on that. I would actually focus on if the lease is a little bit better than it was 3 years ago for the people coming back in off a lease. Not just people who are in your particular manufacturer, but there's other people that are coming 3 years off a lease that may see a better deal with your product than they had with their Audi, let's say, and they see a better deal with your BMW or vice versa. And then when you're on your website, I really would strongly suggest, and I know I'll get a lot of flack for this because I always do, really making sure that you've got high focus on any remaining Model 2 2023s that you have in your inventory. Put them on the home page, put them on a specials page, put a ribbon on them on every single VDP that you have, put a little banner on the top of the SRP for all of your vehicles saying, hey, we have 2023s that are new and we need to get them the heck out of here. We have great deals on them. So when you're talking about social and what you should post from there from organic level, you really need to be talking. You don't want to turn into a used car salesman. So you really want to start talking about long-term care for the vehicle and maybe when it's time to actually trade in the car. Like, when is it time to, all right, I just got a $2,500 service RO. What do I do now? So like, take someone through that, because how many people go through your service department and get those big fat ROs that they're like, well, I can't afford to drop $2,500. I just spent money on Christmas. Like, I'm paying off that credit card. So really take that into account and start talking to your customers organically on social about when it's time to call it, when it's time to trade it in, when it's time to come to you and get a car. Hey, did you just get a big repair bill? Okay, you need to come see us. And let's see if we can make your down payment less than your repair bill and make it make sense for you to get a new car. And if it isn't, I'll pay you $100 or whatever, or I'll give you a free oil change certificate. Something like that would go a long way with someone. You need to really speak to people who are in the season and are dealing with the realities of the Christmas season. So, and what we just, what everyone went through. There's a ton of people being laid off right now that you need to accommodate for too. So someone who needs to sell their car, you can actually speak to someone who needs to sell their car and let them know you'll give them, you have a trade-in tool that they can go through. You don't have to add your phone number and contact information to get your trade-in evaluated, to your trade-in information. Things like that go really far with people. So speak to it organically, where people are at in the season, where people are at with debt and ROs and the benefits, why they should trade in over maybe servicing the car and taking that RO. So if you meet people where they're at with your organic content and you really start absolutely making sure you're speaking to them on their level with regards to the 0% interest rate that they had 4 years ago, and that you're talking about a 2.9% interest rate, that's really where you need to meet them. So I would really challenge you to start making sure that your ad copy and your ad companies, your vendor partners, you all are on the same page with regards to strategy. That's all I got for this week. Happy selling.